The student just destroyed the teacher, and the entire WWE universe is still shaking from what they witnessed at Night of Champions. Welcome to Slam Nation, the ultimate home for the most insane, unpredictable, and explosive wrestling drama on the planet. What you are about to hear is not just a match breakdown. This is a story about legacy, betrayal, evolution, and the single most emotionally devastating showdown of 2025. The King of the Ring final at Night of Champions was not simply a crown on the line. It was not just a guaranteed world title shot at SummerSlam sitting in the balance. This match was a reckoning, a collision between a man and the very shadow he was born from. The American Nightmare standing across the ring from the Viper. The student staring into the eyes of the mentor who shaped him, and by the time that final bell rang, the entire landscape of WWE had been permanently altered. If you love WWE drama and insane wrestling moments like this, make sure you smash that like button, subscribe to Slam Nation, and turn on notifications because things are only getting crazier from here. Drop your thoughts in the comments right now because I want to know whose side you are on. But before we break down every single moment of this match, we have to understand the weight that was walking into that arena with both of these men, because if you did not feel the gravity of this before the opening bell, you were not paying attention. This was not a manufactured rivalry built on a few promos and a contract signing. This was 15 years of history, 15 years of brotherhood, 15 years of complicated loyalty and unspoken tension finally being forced to the surface in the most unforgiving environment in sports entertainment. The American Nightmare did not arrive in WWE as a polished main event star. He was molded, taught, forged under the guidance of the Viper, who saw something in that young, hungry second-generation superstar and decided to shape it into a weapon. The skills of aggression, the psychology of in-ring storytelling, the ability to read and manipulate an opponent, all of that was cultivated inside a faction that the entire locker room feared. The Viper did not just give the American Nightmare a spot. He gave him a blueprint for how to dominate inside a WWE ring. And for a while, that partnership was untouchable. But what happened next shocked everyone, because the American Nightmare refused to stay in anyone's shadow. He walked away. He rebuilt himself from nothing, grinding for years away from the brightest lights in the industry, stripping down every expectation and reconstructing his identity entirely on his own terms. When he came back to WWE, he was not the same person who had left. He was something completely new. A man who had lived through the valleys and earned every single peak. A man who captured the undisputed WWE Championship and made an entire generation of fans feel like they were watching history being written in real time. The student had eclipsed the teacher, and the teacher had to watch every moment of it from a distance. Now here they stood in the King of the Ring tournament final, and the stakes could not have been more enormous. The winner would be crowned the 2025 King of the Ring. The winner would earn a guaranteed shot at the World Championship at SummerSlam. But underneath all of that, underneath the crown and the title shot and the prestige, what this match was really about was one brutal and unavoidable question. Who actually was the better man? The atmosphere inside that arena was electric from the very first second. Fans could not believe what they were seeing from the opening exchange, because it was immediately clear that this was operating on a completely different level. There was a familiarity between these two that absolutely no other pairing in WWE can recreate. They did not just know each other from scouting footage. They knew each other from years of standing on the same side of the ring, thinking through the same situations, learning from the same environments. Every counter was not just athleticism, it was memory. It was instinct built across more than a decade of shared history. The Viper attempted the power slam early and the American Nightmare slipped out. The American Nightmare went for his disaster kick and the Viper read it perfectly, turning it into an RKO attempt that forced a desperate scramble to safety. This completely changed everything in that opening sequence, because the crowd erupted every single time one of them anticipated the other. This was a chess match being played by two men who had studied each other since before either of them could have imagined being in this position. Every move felt loaded. Every counter felt like a declaration. Then the Viper seized control with a crushing superplex from the top rope that sent a shockwave through the ring and briefly silenced the crowd before they exploded back to life. The impact was devastating. But here is where the story pivoted in a direction that nobody expected, because instead of collapsing under the weight of that moment, the American Nightmare got back to his feet and made a very deliberate decision. He targeted the back. That surgically repaired back that the Viper has carried as a vulnerability for years. The American Nightmare drove that back into the ring post with a viciousness that drew a gasp from the entire building. He cranked it, twisted it, applied pressure with a precision that was brutal and intelligent in equal measure. Nobody expected this moment, because the American Nightmare was not just surviving the King of the Ring final. He was taking it apart from the inside, using knowledge that had been given to him by the very person he was now methodically dismantling. The Cody Cutter came and the arena detonated. The pin attempt had the crowd on its feet, but the Viper kicked out. Then came the avalanche Cody Cutter from the top rope, executed with a height and ferocity that made it look like something ripped straight from a highlight reel, and again the Viper refused to stay down. This is what makes the Viper one of the most dangerous competitors in the history of this business. He absorbs. He waits. And when you think you have him, he reminds you exactly who you are dealing with. The WWE Universe exploded after this happened, because out of absolutely nowhere, with the American Nightmare pressing his advantage and the crowd fully behind him, the Viper coiled and connected with an RKO that no one in that building saw coming. The snap. The impact. The crowd switching from hope to horror in a single second. The pin was made. And the American Nightmare kicked out. The arena became completely unhinged and this match was refusing to end. Things became even more chaotic from there, because the Viper reached into the darkest drawer of his playbook. He called for a steel chair, drawing the referee's attention entirely to it, while in the same motion quietly removing the turnbuckle pad from the corner. Classic misdirection. This is the version of the Viper that won championships, that ended careers, that made legends look small. He was not panicking. He was operating. And the fact that he went to those tactics told you everything about how much he respected the man standing across from him. Then came the punt. The Viper coiled. The arena went completely silent in that way that only happens when the crowd understands exactly what they might be about to see. The American Nightmare was down. The timing was right. Everything was aligned. But what happened next shocked everyone, because the Viper stopped. He physically stopped, standing over the American Nightmare with his hands pressed against his own head, staring down at the man he had mentored and shaped. And for one of the very few times in his career, the Viper hesitated. The killer instinct that had driven him to the summit of this industry over and over again flickered in that moment. Whatever was happening inside his head, whether it was respect, or the weight of what finishing this would actually mean, it kept him from pulling the trigger. That hesitation was everything. As the Viper finally committed and charged forward, the American Nightmare was already recovering. He locked in the figure 4, sinking it deep, cranking the pressure down onto that already ravaged back with everything he had. The Viper was trapped in the center of the ring, caught in a submission applied with the precision of a man who had learned aggression and psychology from the very person now writhing beneath him. The student turned the lesson back on the teacher, and the teacher was being educated in the worst possible way. The Viper clawed to the ropes and forced a break. And then came one final breathtaking sequence. The American Nightmare went for another Cody cutter and the Viper countered with a thunderous RKO that dropped the Nightmare flat on the canvas. It looked like it was over. But while the referee had been managing that steel chair distraction earlier, the Viper had also quietly completed his work on that exposed turnbuckle. The trap had been set. And yet when the critical moment arrived, it was the Viper who was sent crashing into that exposed steel. The sound cut through the noise of the arena like a thunderclap. The Viper staggered. The American Nightmare immediately connected with the crossroads, drove him into the canvas, and covered him for the 3 count. Cody Rhodes was crowned the 2025 King of the Ring. The WWE Universe exploded after this happened in a way that felt bigger than any tournament victory could explain. This was not just a crown. This was not just a SummerSlam title shot. This was the completion of a 15-year story. The American Nightmare did not just defeat the Viper. He defeated the man who made him. He used the aggression and psychology and intelligence that had been poured into him during those formative years and turned it against its source. The mentor's greatest creation became his greatest opponent. And in the end, the creation won. There is a version of the Viper that never hesitates. There is a version who fires the punt and feels absolutely nothing. But that version did not show up at Night of Champions. And the question burning through the WWE Universe right now is what happens when the Viper looks at the American Nightmare wearing that crown and decides that he made the single biggest mistake of his career by stopping. What happens when the voices in his head stop being complicated by history and start screaming only for revenge? The king has been crowned. But this story is far from over. If you are not subscribed to Slam Nation yet, fix that right now. Smash that like button, hit subscribe, share this video with every wrestling fan you know, and drop a comment immediately. Tell me who you had in this match. Were you riding with the American Nightmare from the first bell, or did you believe the Viper was going to reclaim his throne and prove once and for all who the apex predator really is? The debate starts in the comments right now, and Slam Nation is nowhere close to finished.